Mark Latham Day. Remember, you can always go to marklathamoutsiders.com, and the more we talk to him, the more relevant it becomes in terms of what he is saying. You've got the book Outsiders, I Won't Be Silenced. It's all there. And on Facebook, just search for Mark Latham's Outsiders. Mark, good morning to you.
Good to be with you, Alan.
Well, we could talk for hours. Before I do, Bettina Arndt is due to speak at Sydney University on September 11, which is less than a week away, Tuesday of next week, about the quote-unquote rape crisis and the same sorts of things that you've been saying, that it is not a crisis at all at university. But it's being sponsored by the Sydney University Liberal Club. It's close to 2 weeks since the club applied, the Liberal Club, to the university for a venue. Bettina Arndt wrote to the left-wing Vice-Chancellor Michael Spence to try to hurry things up. Spence wrote to the club president, Jack O'Brien, to say, quote, "We recognise that one of the fundamental roles of the university is to be a place where ideas can be freely discussed, including those that some may view as controversial. As you know, the Sydney University Liberal Club has been approved to host a talk by Bettina Arndt next week addressing campus culture. In regard to your request for security to be present, which I understand you made at the onset of your application, and here's the bit, I'm able to advise that the campus security team has now completed its assessment and recommends that 3 dedicated security resources should be sufficient to provide a suitable operational response to the event, supported by business-as-usual resources, consistent with numerous events held across our campus by staff, students and our broader community. The dedicated security resources will be charged on a cost recovery basis." So, Mark, a law-abiding outfit has to pay for the right to be law-abiding. The thugs don't pay.
Well, that's just plain wrong. We've seen this in Victoria, where the Antifa radicals disrupting events by Milo Yiannopoulos and Lauren Southern, that the people trying to exercise their free speech have got to pay the cost of the police keeping the idiots out of the venue. So instead of charging the thugs and the criminals for what they've done wrong, the people who've done nothing wrong, the innocent parties just trying to speak and have a meeting, have got to pay the police costs. So Michael Spence, unfortunately, has brought this principle to Sydney University. But, Alan, it just shows you that the truth has become very dangerous, hasn't it? The truth that universities are actually safe spaces and places for women. This is what Bettina Arndt has demonstrated with her statistics, that universities are pretty well the safest spot in the broader community in terms of safety for women. She just wants to stand up and say that.
And that doesn't suit their story.
Truth, and they're going to have to pay...
I've just had a note. They've been granted a room. They'll have to pay $700 for security.
Well, they've got to pay for telling the truth.
Pay for telling the truth.
The thugs and the wrongdoers pay. The people doing the right thing, putting the truth out there, have got to pay for it. So it's quite ridiculous. But, you know, the universities have gone down the wrong path here. Universities are supposed to be an export industry, promoting Australia around the world, and they've accepted what is effectively left-wing propaganda, that there's some problem with rape and sexual assault. The statistics don't bear that out. Why would Michael Spence be part of a system where he's diminishing the international reputation of his university by accepting the sort of propaganda that came out of the Human Rights Commission about this? You see, the universities are fouling their own nest.
This is extraordinary stuff. Last week, the university hosted Socialism 2018. It was billed as Sydney's largest left-wing conference. Do you think they were charged for extra security? Because no security is needed, because it's only the feral left who are aggressive, and protection is required for speakers who offend them. There'd be no protest when the left are conducting a conference.
Well, absolutely. And there's another big principle here. As taxpayers, we're all funding what should be the guiding principle of a university's activity, and that is academic inquiry. The truth and academic debate should be placed in front of university students on campus free of charge, because we're paying for it as taxpayers. So this is a double charge against Bettina Arndt and the organisers of the meeting, and that's plain wrong. I mean, Michael Spence should be writing a letter to say the guiding principle of our university is truth and academic inquiry at any cost. at any cost that'll be met by the university, not the people holding the meeting.
Or the thugs. If they have to be, if we have to protect law-abiding people from thugs, then the thugs should be made to pay. Well, you know, you and I have talked about this, goodness knows how long, for how many months and years. We now learn this week as well that the tax office has set a 3% benchmark for staff who identify as gay, bi or transsexual. And this is to encourage employees to come out of the closet. And the ATO says it wants our staff to be confident to bring their whole selves to work. And the Australian Public Service Commission last year, for the first time, included in its annual census a question asking whether employees identified as LGBTI, and the tax office was quoted as saying, "The diversity of our staff is one of our greatest assets and ensures we are representative of the community we serve. We want to foster a workplace culture where LGBTI employees feel safe and comfortable in being themselves in the workplace and where all staff are valued and respected." So now there's a 3% benchmark for staff who are gay, bi or transsexual. Where the hell does this end?
Well, it's a bizarre development. Last Friday was what they call Wear It Purple Day. I put on my Facebook page correspondence from Woolworths, who are almost forcing its staff to wear purple in support of LGBTI people. And some of the Woolworths staff from that community wrote to me to say they regard it as an intrusion on their rights that their sexuality is being placed in the workplace. They said, I go to Woolworths to stack the shelves to sell the groceries. What has my sexuality got to do with selling groceries?
Correct.
And you could ask at the tax office, what has the sexuality of any staff member got to do with assessing taxation forms and returns? So, you know, this is quite ridiculous. And it's actually an intrusion on the privacy and rights of the workers that, in the words of that memo you've read out, they've got to bring their whole self to work. They can't leave any private part of their life in the home where they would feel most comfortable with it. They've got to bring their whole self to work and expose their whole life, lose all sense of privacy, and some people are saying dignity as a worker in these workplaces that are forcing this political agenda upon them. Where are the trade unions, Alan? That's what I ask about this. Where are the trade unions running the argument that these workers have got a right to privacy, their sexuality has got nothing to do with taxation returns, it's got nothing to do with selling groceries, and we're not going to have our workers forced into this agenda that invades their privacy and their dignity? Well, unfortunately, the trade unions in this area don't represent the workers anymore. They take the fees, but they don't represent the workers. They're encouraging this wear it purple type madness.
Good on you. Outstanding. You see, therefore we take it another step, and this stuff is most probably being taught in schools, which brings us to the 2018 NAPLAN results, producing the weakest standard of high school writing in the 10 years of the testing process because schools and the classrooms are increasingly preoccupied with other things.
Well, it's amazing. The writing and reading skills are going down the drain, and to wonder why, to get an answer, you've only got to look at the material in the curriculum. I was handed a copy of material from the New South Wales Years 7 to 10 English syllabus, and the person who gave it to me, he passed it on just to let me know what was happening. It's your point, Alan. We need to know what's happening in the classroom. You know, we need to know. And he highlighted all the sections that dealt with diversity, politics, and gender theory. Well, you know, they were very yellow pages. And you go through some of this material, basically the English curriculum in New South Wales has been hijacked to turn it into a form of identity politics.
That's right. Now, just to let our listeners know what Mark is talking about, and this is what I keep saying, parents, are you aware that this is happening in the classroom? The English syllabus document says, amongst other things, quote, students experience and value difference and diversity in their everyday lives. Age, beliefs, gender, language and race are some of the factors that comprise difference and diversity. English provides students with opportunities to deal with difference and diversity in a positive and informed manner, showing awareness, understanding and acceptance. Not a word about the great works of English literature, which are the cornerstone, as you've said, of our civilization. I mean, I taught and studied Wuthering Heights, magnificent novel. And the two, you diagrammatically draw Wuthering Heights. There was Thrushcross Grange, and there was Wuthering Heights, and there was Heathcliff. And he never, ever fitted into the refinery and the sophistication of Thrushcross Grange, and you learned of this conflict between cultures. No. In the New South Wales curriculum, quote, Wuthering Heights is traditionally read as a novel about intense human relationships but contemporary alternative readings include a political reading, seeing it as a novel of social class and bourgeois exploitation in Victorian England, and a gendered reading with gender stereotypes. Mark, who the hell is going to put a stop to this?
Well, someone needs to. The Education Minister is useless. The bureaucrats are running the show, and they're running it basically to turn English into lessons about left-wing identity politics. And when it gets to the point that Wuthering Heights, poor old Kathy, she thought she was coming home. She signed up to the feminist campaign, Clementine Ford and all that gang, on the basis that...
Oh, keep quiet, stop. Well, we've got to pause to laugh here. Catherine Linton, she thought she was coming home. Go on.
Yeah, but she's been signed up for the feminazis, and mockery is important, but the serious thing is, how can we allow English to become politics? People want to study politics at university, well, you go for it. But English has got to be the great works of literature to teach these kids how to read and write. The results show that it's not happening, and one of the reasons is that, well, they're not really studying English anymore, they're studying left-wing politics.
They are indeed, so they get speeches to study. So one of them is Emma Watson's 2014 UN speech promoting feminism, another is Gillard's misogyny rant against Tony Abbott. No speeches about Jesus of Nazareth or Churchill or Pericles or any of those people. They don't rank ahead of the feminazi victimhood speeches. It's just unbelievable. Do parents know this is going on? Their kids' minds are being polluted.
Well, we've got a New South Wales election in March, and this should be a major issue. And it's a simple proposition for people to understand that the NAPLAN results have gone downhill. Kids aren't learning reading and writing because instead that time that's allocated to the school notionally for English has actually become a politics class. So now I've read this Emma Watson speech at the UN, and it's just dross.
Rubbish. Mark, if someone had there'd be a headline story in the front of the Sydney Morning Herald or the Courier Mail or the Melbourne Age about someone dumping cars and rubbish into Cooks River, and the headline would say, we can't allow our environment to be polluted in this way. And there'd be all sorts of legislative intervention to stop this from happening. Who is worrying about the pollution of the minds of young people?
Well, we need to make it a big issue for the coming New South Wales election to return the English curriculum to English. A simple proposition. And Alan, you raised a good point. I mean, the worst thing a current generation can ever do in society is pollute the minds of the next generation. And that's what's happening through the back door. It's a Trojan horse tactic of the left to turn English into politics. It's polluting the minds of the young people with stuff that's got absolutely nothing to do with their reading and writing skills. And the crime against them is that it leaves them underprepared for the world and the working life ahead. And it's a national tragedy.
Yep.
I wish that the new national leadership, Morrison and Frydenberg, instead of so many photo opportunities, they'd address issues like this. I mean, this is the stuff that's happening in the classroom today, and it's a tragedy.
Yeah, well, I must say, Mark, I have spoken off-air to Frydenberg about this, and I've said, listen, if you want to win an election and establish a point of difference, this is it. At least Frydenberg is intelligent enough and smart enough to be able to digest the issues. So once I get all this material together, I'm going to give it to him and say, righto, get on air publicly and tell us where you stand.
Well, he needs to. One of the wonders of modern politics is they spend so much time with media spin and social media postings and photo opportunities. I look at the Morrison-Frydenberg combination and what they've done over the past fortnight and think, where's their thinking time?
Yep.
Where's the time to sit down and actually think about the backup of major issues for our country that need to be solved? People have got to think before they can act.
Good on you. Always great to talk. Talk again.